I'm Elizabeth at Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I have a PhD in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists, and as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have my March wrap-up for you. I read 9 books and DNF'd 1 book. And I've talked about this a bit in currently reading videos, and I think in my quarter year reflection tag. I've had a really weird reading month. I've been in a very weird mood. So if everything shook, the cat jumped on the table. But yeah, I don't know. It's just been kind of weird. I haven't been wanting to read the things on my TBR. I did not read my mammoth that I was planning to read for March of the Mammoths. Pippin, please don't knock the camera over. And yeah, I don't know. It's just been kind of weird. So there's a lot of library books. And yeah, let's jump in. Hi, Pippin. So first up was actually a continuation of my kick on Japanese cat books from February. This is She and Her Cat, Stories by Makoto Shinkai and Naruki Nagakawa. So this, and translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This is a set of interconnected short stories about various women and the cats that they have in their lives. It's really sweet. I might have cried a little. I personally really liked the first story, which focuses on a young woman who is feeling very lonely and isolated, and she comes across a kitten in a cardboard box, abandoned, and she takes him in, and their relationship. I loved it. But honestly, all of the stories were really good and just really sweet. And I liked that we get both the point of view of the person and the points of view of the cat. It kind of like switches back and forth. So I loved that. Yeah, I gave this 4 stars. Again, yeah, it might have made me cry a little bit. Next up is one that I talked about in my quarter year crisis as something that was completely outside of my comfort zone. This is Temple of the Tentacle Priests by Ava Wilde. It is exactly what you think it is, based on that title and this cover. It is a monster romance. It is very smutty. I don't usually read stuff like this. I saw somebody review it over on Tumblr and I was like, that sounds absolutely unhinged. And then was like, kept thinking back to it. I was like, it just seems so unhinged that I want to read it myself. So I requested the arc on NetGalley. We are following Dr. Poppy Flynn, who is a sex psychologist and who ends up going to like another dimension, basically. It's wild. Wild, unhinged. But it is exactly what it says it's gonna be. I gave it 3 stars because, like, yeah, it does what it does well. That's just not my thing. I satisfied my curiosity on it, and sometimes you just like really need something unhinged, and that was kind of the mood I was in. So yeah, it's what it is. Next up is an audiobook that I got through Spotify. This is Cinder House by Freya Marsk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. This is a retelling of Cinderella, featuring our Cinderella character, Ella, who is a ghost. She was murdered along with her father by her wicked stepmother, and now she is tied to the house, and her step family is using her as a servant because her, like, what happens to the house, she actually feels it. So like if one of her stepsisters breaks a window, she feels that, and they use that to control her. But she finds a way that she is able to actually leave the house despite being tied to it. And then we go from there. I loved this. I thought this was such a creative and unique twist on the Cinderella story. I loved how she described Ella's connection with the house. It was so interesting. I ultimately gave this 5 stars. I really liked the romance. I won't say more about that because I don't want to give it away. But the romance is like something that I'm like keep advocating more in all of the TV shows that I watch with my husband. I'm like, this would fix everyone's problems if they just went with this, and Freya Marks went with this. And that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, and the audiobook was fantastic. Did I write down who read it? No, that would have been helpful. Hold on. It was narrated by Anna Burnett, and she did a fantastic job, and I would highly recommend reading it on audiobook. So yeah, 5 stars. This is actually my current favorite book of the year, but as we know, it's still very, very early, and that is bound to change. The favorite new book of the year, because Mary Barton is my actual favorite of the year, but that was a reread. Anyway, moving on. Next up, I finally decided to go for one that I actually owned. And that was on my TBR. It is a reread, but it's one that I wanted to reread so that I could read the sequel. And this is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. We are following Effie, who is the first girl admitted into the architecture college at this prestigious university. But she actually wants to be in the literature college to study the works of her favorite author, whose name I cannot pronounce, and I'll put it somewhere. She is invited by that author's son to undertake a redesign of his house. When she gets there, there is another college student, Preston, who is from the literature college, and it turns out he is looking into the author's letters, trying to prove this theory that the author did not actually write the works. I loved this the first time I read it. I loved it the second time. It is gothic in this creepy house on a cliff by the ocean, and there's stuff about fairies and authorship, and yeah, no, I loved it. This was a 5-star for me. I'm really glad that I reread it, especially since I think if I'd gone straight into the sequel, I don't know if I really would have been able to remember anything. But yeah, great book. One of my favorites by Ava Reid. Next up, I went for another library book. This is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reid. We have a Reid. 3 books by people with the last name Reid, given 2 of them are the same author. But anyway, I watched the show of this, which has gotten very popular recently, and I really enjoyed the show, so I wanted to read the book. I was like, wow, this is like almost exact adaptation. Like, I was so surprised. You never get like a TV show adapting a book that does it that closely. Like, there were a few things changed just to shorten down and condense. And then there were some characters expanded on that I actually thought was really good. But yeah, I was amazed at what a close adaptation it was. We are following 2 hockey players, Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov, who play for rival teams and have been set up from their rookie year as like these big rivals who hate each other. It turns out they're actually having a relationship behind the scenes, and we go through like almost 10 years, I think it's like 8 years of their relationship, and seeing it grow from just kind of being, you know, a fun hookup to an actual committed relationship. Yeah, this was great. I had a great time. I was very pleasantly surprised at how faithful an adaptation the show was, and I give this 5 stars. Next, I picked up A Theory of Dreaming, the sequel to A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. So we are picking up where A Study in Drowning, a little after A Study in Drowning leaves off. I really can't say much without spoiling A Study in Drowning. This book has a lot more focus on Preston, whereas we are like close third person on Effie the entire time in A Study in Drowning. We get both of them in A Theory of Dreaming, and like the big plot things are happening to Preston. I enjoyed this, but I did not like it as much as the first book. I think it's because I like the aesthetic of the first book with like the gothic creepy house and the fairies and all that. And this book doesn't have that. We do have an interesting kind of dream world that I found I didn't really get exactly what was going on there, but that's okay. And we get a lot more of the university setting, but I wanted even more of it, if that makes sense. Like, we saw some classes, but I wanted to see more of the classes, like, and more of the academic side of things. We do get some great, like, library scenes and going through old books and stuff, and it's there. I wanted more of the academics. Like, I wanted to see more of their classes. I feel like we only really saw one class, and it was like a negative experience for the characters. So I wanted more better classes. Yeah, I don't know. I gave this 4 stars. I did enjoy it, just not as much as the first one. So now we have 2 that I need to talk about together, kind of. And one of those is the book I did not finish. So I picked up at the library We Love You, Bunny by Mona Awad. And that is the sequel to Bunny by Mona Awad, which I had read in 2020. So I started reading We Love You, Bunny and realized I did not, like, I got maybe 10, 15 pages in and was like, I don't remember the first book enough to continue, which it was kind of like marketed as both a sequel and a prequel, and like technically you could read it without Bunny. I do not agree. Like, it doesn't work as a standalone. So I was like, okay, put that down for a bit and we'll go back to Bunny, which I had a very complicated feelings about. It was the first book I ever gave half-star rating. It was 3.5 stars originally. We are following Samantha, who is in a prestigious MFA program. She has a cohort that's all women, and the other girls are in this kind of clique together, and they all call each other Bunny, and they're kind of culty, and she hates them. But then they invite her to one of their smut salons, and she kind of falls into their world and the absolutely crazy stuff they are doing, because they are doing some crazy stuff. Yeah, so I reread this. It actually went down in rating by half a star. I gave it 3 stars this time around. There was stuff about it that I really liked, especially the first time I read it. The satire of the MFA program is hysterical. And I stand by that. It's hilarious. If you know, like, MFA people, no offense to any MFA people watching, I love you guys, but some of you are crazy. Like, I'm sorry. So, like, if you're somebody that's familiar with that demographic, it's quite funny. It's also weird, and like, what is happening? I found that I did not find it as funny the second time. Like, it was still funny, but not as much. And like, the weirdness just didn't work for me quite as well the second time around. However, it is really well written, and Awad is doing so many interesting things. There's like this section in the middle that uses the first person plural, and I loved that. And I'd loved that the first time around. So yeah, this was 3 stars. Let me go back to We Love You, Bunny, which is set up as having happened after Bunny. So Samantha has published her book about her experience, which is the novel Bunny. And the bunnies end up kidnapping her, and then they're like, we're gonna tell you our side of the story because you got things wrong, and yeah. And so they start telling the story of starting in their first year when they all became friends. And I wasn't feeling it. I was not feeling this at all. So it starts out with, and I talked a bit about this, was it in the quarter year? It must have been in the quarter year check-in tag. Start out in that first person plural that I really loved from the first book. And I was like, yes, this is gonna be great. However, it also will then move into first person singular as each individual bunny is telling her side of the story. And then the other bunnies will interrupt sometimes, and it's just kind of weird. And then we also have the second person because they are addressing Samantha as you. So you, the reader, are Samantha. And it was kind of just too much going on, but also it just didn't feel as engaging as the first book. Like, and I think a big part of the problem is one of the things I found charming about the first book is that, like, the bunnies are not fleshed out characters. Like, Samantha refers to them by nicknames that she's made up for them, like Cupcake and Creepy Doll and stuff like that. So they are not, like, fully fleshed out. They are kind of these two-dimensional characters. And I liked them like that. Like, I didn't really want to know their kind of backstories and have them be fleshed out characters. I wanted them to be the kind of more just mean girl, like Heathers type villains. I didn't want to go into all of their psyche about why they are the way they are. And I'm like, I didn't want that. And that's what the We Love You Bunny was doing. And I was like, really? And then, so, you know, I flipped ahead and, like, kind of skimmed through some other stuff. And it just didn't seem like it was going to get any more interesting to me. It was also twice the length as Bunny. Like, I think a lot of what makes this work is how short it is. Like, this is only just over 300 pages. And I think something this weird can work for a short time, but trying to extend it to almost 600 pages is just too much. I did not want to read almost 600 pages of it. So yeah, I put it down and won't be going back to it. I will be going back to more by Mona Awad. I want to read Rouge later this year, and we'll see what I think of that. Next was another library book. This is Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is a retelling of Snow White. We are following Anya, who studies poisons and antidotes to poisons. And the king shows up at her house because his daughter, Snow, is incredibly ill, and nobody has been able to figure it out. He thinks she's being poisoned, but none of the healers have been able to do anything. So he wants Anya to come in and try to figure it out. Anya soon finds this magical world through a mirror that it seems Snow is also going through. And that's all I'm gonna say because the kind of mystery of it is a big part of this. I loved this. I thought this was an absolutely fantastic take on Snow White. Again, like Cinder House, it was very unique. And I've enjoyed pretty much everything I've read by T. Kingfisher, and I especially like when she does fairy tale retellings because they're really, really so good. I liked Anya as a character. She's kind of like middle-aged. Or is she middle-aged or she's like in her 30s, I think, which would make me middle-aged if we're going with that's middle-aged. Yeah, she's in her 30s. And I like having an older protagonist. That is nice because so many fantasy books, even when they're not young adult, they still deal with like late teens, early 20s protagonists, and it's nice to have somebody older. Again, I really liked the way that she adapted various elements of the story. Before all of this happens with Snow, Snow's mother and her younger sister, Rose, have both died. And it was the queen was found cutting out Rose's heart. And so then the king killed the queen. So everything around that is just really good. It was excellent. There's also a talking cat, and I loved him. Grayling. I adored him. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Really, really good. And then we get to the final book, which was a poetry collection, and the only book other than A Study in Drowning that was actually on my March TBR. This is A Suit or a Suitcase, poems by Maggie Smith, not actress Maggie Smith, obviously, poet Maggie Smith. This is a new release. It came out on March 31st, and I actually read it on March 31st. I was given this advanced reader copy in a giveaway from Goodreads. And yeah, these were really good. As with any poetry collection, there's ones that I liked more than others. A lot of these kind of deal with the relationship between, as it says on the back, the body and the mind and the self and the world. So it's kind of broken into 5 sections. And I liked a lot of the poems in the first section. The second session was not as much one of my favorites, although there were a few in there that I liked. And then the third section is actually just entirely one poem, 10-page poem called Self-Portrait as an Incomplete List of Mysteries. And that was probably my favorite. Yeah, I really liked this poetry collection. I liked the way that Maggie Smith uses language and line breaks, and it was just really good. I would read you a few, but it says not to quote because it's an advanced reader copy and therefore not the final copy. So I guess I won't read you anything, sorry. I do highly recommend it though, it was good. I gave this 4 stars and I'm really looking forward to reading more from her. So that is my March wrap up. Let me know down in the comments. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? What did you read in the month of March? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.